Shalom uvracha from Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. With the help of God, we continue this evening our joint study of Pirkei Avot, of the ethics of the fathers. And this evening's study is Perek Aleph, Mishna Tetvav, the first chapter, the 15th Mishnah. For the last several weeks we've been studying the teachings of Hillel, and this evening in Mishnah Tetvav, in the 15th Mishnah, we begin to study the teachings of Shammai, the other great authority, the other great leader of the Jewish nation, a contemporary of Hillel. And Shammai says, Shammai Omer, Asei Toratecha Keva. Asei Toratecha Keva. Establish your Torah in a fixed way. Don't refer to Torah, don't relate to Torah as something which you chance upon occasionally, but it should be keva. It should be kavua. Make it a permanent part of your life. The Torah should be something which is as ever present as your being. No day should pass without Torah. No part of your life should be without Torah. It should be keva. It should be kavua. Some say that if you have to make adjustments in your life, don't adjust the Torah to your life, but adjust your life to the Torah. Asei Torah techa keva. Everything is around the permanent structure of the Torah, which is the basis of our activities. Asei Torah techa keva could mean not just Asei Torah keva. Torah techa means your Torah. Maybe each person is blessed to have their own insights into Torah. V'tein chelkeinu b'toratecha. And not only is it important to be involved in studying Torah generally establishing a fixed time or series of times for study, what we call Kovea Eitim La Torah. One of the questions on Judgment Day, according to certain sources, is God asks each of us, did you set up fixed times for the study of Torah? But maybe the Mishnah, maybe Shammai is emphasizing, Asei Torah Techa, your Torah. Asei Torah Techa Keva. It's very, very important for a person to be able to identify his or her understanding of Torah and to establish it in a permanent way. It's not good enough to just study Torah the way other people study Torah. You are supposed to have your own reading of Torah, which is extremely important to us. In Kabbalah, I'm not a Kabbalist, but in Kabbalah they speak about how everyone has a letter in the Torah, and you're looking for your letter, you're looking for your identity. Some people, when they raise the Torah scroll, they're going to look to identify their letter. Doesn't mean just the name of the letter of the first letter of their name. It means, is there a certain shining, guiding light of Torah in your being? I say Torah Techa Keva. There is an interpretation in the very early sources that maybe your Torah, even your rulings in Torah, should be Keva. Maybe you shouldn't follow different kinds of practices. In other words, there are some people that are very lenient for themselves, and they're very strict for other people. So that's not Keva, right? It's not Keva. If it's good enough for you to be lenient, why are you ruling in a stringent way for others? Surprisingly, there are sources that say, and this is not so simple, and according to one early reading, Keva means you also should not be stringent or strict upon yourself, and you lenient to others. That's a greater chidush, because historically we had many, many great rabbis who perhaps for others they ruled to follow lenient practices. For themselves, they were stricter and they were more stringent. According to one reading, Shammai is saying, Keva, whatever you do, Keva, make it kavua, an equal standard for everyone. That needs great elucidation and clarification, because that's not so simple. There are surely those who would say that if you're on an advanced level, maybe you're allowed to express advanced levels of connection But I would just recommend that people look into these sources, study it in Rabbi Natan, study it in the Rav, Rabbeinu Avadiyah, bringing such an interpretation, and clarify it because it's not a simple teaching. The second teaching of Shammai is Emor Ma'at V'aseh Harbe. Say little, but do a lot. Very often we speak so much about what we're going to do that just by speaking about it, that replaces doing it. So don't talk so much. Just get to do the action. Speak a little and do a great deal. Accomplish a great deal. The classical example that's cited in early sources is that when Abraham, our great father, our great teacher, when Abraham is inviting him to guests, he says, "Well, maybe I'll take a little of water, a little bread, a slice of bread, a little loaf of kapat lechem." He doesn't serve them just bread and water. He serves them, a feast. But he didn't say that. Maybe when you speak, you don't have to necessarily, speak at length about everything that you plan on doing. Just do it. And the counterpart of Abraham is represented by certain people in Tanakh who speak gloriously. They speak as if everything will be accomplished. And then when it came to the action, they did the opposite of. They were omerim harbe, v'osim ma'at. So he represents here. He teaches here. Emor ma'at v'aseh harbe. I once read an article on trying to lose weight. For those of us who are trying to move in that direction, of course, healthfully and successfully, may everyone be on perfect weight and perfect health. I once read that maybe people that speak a lot about going on diets, the fact that they're speaking so much about going on diets replaces the diet. It could be that if you speak about going on a diet, you really will go on a diet, or it could be, I'm going on a diet. I'm going on a diet. So the emar harbe causes the osemat. So just be humble in what you say. There are people who pledge all types of pledges, all types of promises. They're going to give large sums of money, and they're going to donations of building, and not always is it carried out to fruition. You don't have to speak so much. Actions speak louder than words. Emor ma'at v'aseh harbe. And Shammai concludes his Mishnah. The third teaching of Shammai in our Mishnah is V'hevei mikabel et kol ha'adam v'sever panim yafot. One of my favorite teachings in this entire work. And greet every single person. Greet everyone with a cheerful countenance, with a cheerful face. Sever panim yafot. Smile to people. Greet them lovingly. Greet them warmly. Make them feel comfortable. Now, Rav Kook pointed out, I'm sure it was pointed out earlier, but Rav Kook made the point of saying, I read several stories about people that came to his house, and some of these people were the opposite of his close associates, and many of them had made his life, unfortunately, miserable. As you know, Rabbi Kook did not necessarily always take the position which was followed by many other rabbis, and he had his own ideas on certain areas. And there were people, God forbid, who besmirched him and I guess, in a certain sense hurt him. And some of these people showed up in his house. On different occasions, they needed letters of recommendation. They needed letters of recommendation for certain officials. And Rav Kook had international status. And he sat down, he started writing letters, and he started greeting them. And one of his students said, what are you doing? You know who this person is? He's one of your chief opponents. He said, did you ever read Pirkei Avot? Havei mekabel. It doesn't say Havei mekabel Adam, the Sever panim yafot. It says Havei mekabel Kol Adam, everyone. The Sever panim yafot. And Rav Levi Yitzchak Barditchev, I read that he had all kinds of people entering his house who did not necessarily deserve to enter his house. And many of them were problematic personalities. And someone said to him, Rav Levi Yitzchak, so he said something along the lines of, on Judgment Day, I will want to enter God's paradise. And God will close the door in my face, because I didn't deserve it. and I'll say, please, I want a private audience with God. And the angels will somehow arrange it. And I'll come before God and say, can I please come into, why do you deserve to come into paradise? So Rabbi Levi, of course it's fictitious because he had enough merits. No one would ever close the doors in front of Rabbi Levi. So this is the way he said it in his humility. He said, and I will say to God, do you know how many people I let into my house who didn't deserve to really come in? If they can come into my house, God, can I please come into your house? And at that moment, the gateways of paradise, says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, will be open. Yeah, maybe kabel it, call Adam, the Savior Panim Yafot. It cannot be overstated the importance, the greatness of smiling to someone, of greeting someone cheerfully. So, you know, sometimes somebody's going through a personal issue in life, and they're in the middle of a crisis or a mini crisis, and someone comes to the door. The other person doesn't know what happened 5 seconds before you knocked at the door, and you're in the middle of whatever you're in the middle of. Maybe Shammai is teaching, no matter what's happening in your life, it's not the other person's fault. Greet them. Not that they should think that maybe it's because they're bothering you that you're looking at them with a stern, angry face. Greet everyone. Sever panim yafod. Sever panim yafod. A beautiful face, a beautiful smile. Was it Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, I think, who was standing in front of the mirror, posing with different kinds of smiles. I heard the story from my great teacher, Rabbi Miller. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter is not a typical kind of action, but he's great. He's standing there. He's trying different kinds of smiles in front of his mirror. I think it was Rabbi Pliskin who said, it's good to smile at a mirror because the person in the mirror will smile back at you. So anyway, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, he's smiling and he's smiling, this kind of smile, that kind of smile. One of his students said, what are you doing? What is this? He said, well, it says in the Mishna, you should have panim, sever, panim, yafot. So I'm trying to figure out what the nicest pose is, which is the nicest way to smile, to make people feel comfortable when I greet them. But what I was dealing with in this Mishnah, I have two issues that bothered me very much. The first is, if I would not know the name of the author of these teachings, I would never guess that it would be Shammai. If somebody, let's say somebody would come over to me and say, who do you think teaches that you should greet everybody warmly? Well, we have a series of teachings in Tractate Shabbat. I have the Gemara open in front of me. Shabbat, page 31a. Page Daf Lamed Aleph. There's story after story about someone comes to Shammai and, he only wants to accept one Torah. He wants to convert only accepting one Torah, not two Torah. And he throws him out. And he comes to another story about a Gentile who wants to convert and he wants to learn instant Judaism on 1 foot. And he throws him out. And the third story about somebody who wants to convert to Judaism on condition that he becomes the high priest, Kohen Gadol, he throws him out. So I would never guess that the one who's saying, greet everyone warmly, is none other than the great rabbi. In all of those stories, by the way, if you have a chance to look at the text in Shabbat 31, you'll see that in all those stories, the great converts continue with their pathway, and they go to Hillel, and Hillel greets them warmly and converts all of them. And the end of the story there is that they said, "Kapedanuto shel Shammai, bikshal tardenu min ha'olam." The strict attitude of Shammai would have driven us out of this world. I would never guess. I'm telling you, I would never guess. Someone covered the name of the author. I would never guess it's Shammai. Shammai. I always identified Shammai based on these stories. It's a very stern, strict teacher. And he's the one who's teaching Kabel Kol Adam B'Sefer Panim Yafot. It's an amazing idea. Now, I said something, but I don't really know if it's true. So I don't know should I say something on YouTube, which I'm not sure is true? What? It's okay to say it?
Most of it on YouTube is not true.
But I hope most of the things I said are true. It's okay to say it. It's conjecture. This could be totally false. I wanted to say it, but I have no proof of this. No proof at all. It's just wishful thinking. Can it be that after Shammai realized how successful Hillel was with his approach, that the teaching in Pirkei Avot is a new trend in Shammai's life? the stories, we don't have dates. When did these stories take place? When was this Mishnah taught? Can it be suggested, and again, it can be totally wrong, can it be suggested in all these stories, he pushes this one out, he pushes that one out, he rejects this one, the chafo ba'amat habinyan, he throws them out, Can it be that after this, when all three success stories, 3 consecutive success stories, 3 for 3, Hillel was successful in warmly greeting them, in ideas which are very, very difficult to explain. How did he do this? What do you mean he accepts only the written Torah, not the oral Torah? Hillel worked with him till he understood that the oral Torah is part of Torah. Hillel worked with him till he realized that you can't be the Kohen Gadol. Hillel worked with him trying to understand the main principle. Can it be that Shammai's teaching in Pirkei Avot is a postscript to that which it says in the Baraitot, quoted in the Talmud? And when he realized that the three converts stated that Shammai's attitude would have driven us away from God. All 3 meet each other. And they said, Kapadanuto shel Shammai b'kshol dardenu min ha'olam, an v'tanuto shel Hillel, kervanu tahat kanfei Shekhinah. That maybe Shammai, maybe this represents a new attitude of Shammai. I can't prove that. Yes.
I wanted to explain this problem, maybe looking at the connection between all the 3 teachings of Shammai. The first one is talking about make your Torah keva. Now, one can say it's talking about time, or it's talking in a way, as you said, make the Torah your major thing. In other words, sometimes people relate to an issue. Okay, today I'll do it this way, tomorrow another way. Shammai saying you have to have a public, prominent order for your Judaism. It should not be haphazard, laid back. It has to be a supreme, constrained effort to have the same Judaism, the same Torah, every day in and out. Or in the last case, in the last teaching in the Mishna, that you should smile at everyone. In other words, he's concerned with the public image of Judaism. It's not a private issue. Hillel is concerned maybe with the private side.
So how do you reconcile this teaching
with
the fact that Shammai
on
rejected?
A private level, it's one thing.
But these people were insulting Torah.
These people
were insulting the
system.
He
felt they were not. He didn't see them as sui generis, as honest or sincere people. In other words,
they were undermining the
He can't, as a leader, he can't permit things on a public level. Privately, you can do certain things, but on a public level,
I hear.
If we look at Shammai's students and everything he teaches, even when Shammai puts blessing Shamayim before Aretz, Hillel does Eretz before Shamayim. Shammai would put the Kiddush before the Geffen. In other words, Shammai is concerned with the public institution. For him, the setup, the establishment is institution, because that's Torah. That's the Torah Keva. Hillel has another approach. Practically, we may not always follow Shammai, but I think Shammai is very important, because otherwise you come into a shul, this Shabbos will do it this way, this Shabbos, you don't have a uniform. Shammai wants a prominent, public, uniform approach to Yiddishkeit. Kavua, set. It's not a game, it's a serious thing.
Okay, so I accept Rabbi Yosef's teaching, and maybe Mekabel Kol Adam. If a person is speaking like a mensch, or as Rabbi Yosef said, in a private encounter is one thing. If you feel that the person is undermining the whole system and insulting Judaism, teach me Judaism on one foot. I mean, can you learn chemistry on one foot? Can you learn physics on one foot? Can you learn medicine on one foot? It's an absurd. What do you mean 1 foot? These are years and years of study. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of teaching. What do you mean on 1 foot? Sometimes I say maybe there's 1 foot, maybe one principle, whatever it is. Maybe there can be reconciliation. But it's an amazing idea that Shammai is the one who's teaching this. This afternoon, in conjunction with what Rav Yosef said, this afternoon I spent a considerable amount of time in Bar Ilan's library. They have many books on Pirkei Avot, because I was trying to find a thread that goes through the 3 teachings. They're all beautiful teaching. But what does teaching A have to do with teaching B? And what does teaching B have to do with teaching C? I mean, yeah, they're all independently, they're beautiful, but you can teach anything independently. And I was not able, I would think that this would have been addressed by many of the commentaries. I did not see many commentaries addressing it. I'd like to share what I understood to be the approach of the Avar Benel. And his idea is rather novel. I have to admit, I never saw it before. I saw it this afternoon for the first time, and I hope I'm presenting it accurately. Those people listening or viewing, you could review the Avar Benel in the Mishnah and tell me if you think I read it correctly. The Avar Benel seems to say that maybe Shammai is speaking in contradistinction to Hillel, and maybe Hillel came to the conclusion that the most important aspect of Judaism, it's amazing that this is what he says, because I would never think this about Hillel, that maybe Hillel was overemphasizing Torah, the study of Torah, and Shammai said, no, you have to have time for Torah. Asay Torah chakeva. You need a kviyut for Torah. Listen to his interpretations. So I tell you, he said, unusual reading. Emor ma'at. You don't have to, the learning should be, somewhat limited. Because lo ha-midrash ikar, ela ha-ma'aseh. Well, you learn more, you speak more words of Torah. Emor ma'at. And the Avar Benel learns this about Torah study. It's an unusual reading.
That sounds crazy.
What? That's why I said, look at the Avar Benel. I have it on the shelf here. And more, I hope I'm reading it correctly. I hesitated very much to quote this publicly. This is the Avar Benel. And more, aseh harbei. Get involved in action. That's what you're supposed to do. And they become el kol adam and say everybody in your phone. All the study that you're doing, the Torah chakeva and the Emor ma'at, is supposed to lead you. He translates asay in two different ways. He says, yes, you have to be involved in Torah study. Yes, you have to learn. You have to have time set for learning. You have to places and positions and time slots. But asay harbei, make sure that you don't replace action with just study. And he says the double expression asay harbei, v'vei b'kabel kol adam sever panim yafod, means actions towards God, between people and God, and actions towards other people, as the Mishnah concludes. So it means on some level, this more or less what I just said is what the Avar Benel says. If I may extrapolate a little bit, maybe it means even though you're doing keva, you're learning Torah permanently, make sure that the Torah that you study, never, God forbid, causes you to insult the feelings of another individual. In other words, maybe you're so into the books, and you're so into the learning. Someone comes over to you and wants to speak to you. Leave me alone. I'm in the middle of Tosafot. I mean, I have to look up the Maharsha. I want to study the Rambam. It's all beautiful, right? But havei mikabel et kol adam b'sefer panim yafod. Even when you're doing asay Torah chakeva, and I don't know who it was that said this. I hope I have the right name, but if I don't have the right name, so forgive me. Maybe it's Rav Chaim Moser, maybe it's someone else. He said, if you're learning and you're learning and you're learning and you're learning, and someone comes over to you and says, "Please help me. Please, I really, really need help. Could you please help me?" And you say, "So sorry, I can't help you. I can't close my Gemara. I'm in the middle of learning." So Rav Chaim Moser said, "You should know that your Gemara has been long closed. You're missing what it says there." But let's say somebody comes over to you and says, "My heart is broken. I have." Is the Chavetz Chaim said?
I heard
somebody comes over to you when you're learning and says, "I have a very serious issue, and I really, really have to speak to you, and it has to be now." And you close your Gemara, and you go speak to them. You should know that your Gemara is ever open. It's always open. That's the open Gemara. So you have to somehow balance the Asay Torah Chakeva, the Emor Ma'at, with the Asay Harbei, the Vei Mikabel et Kol Adam, the Sever Panim Gefot. Concluding word.
Rashud Harav, I'd like to suggest, according to the Rambam, all these Mishnayot are basically talking addressed to the Dayan. In other words, the Jewish leader. Today we say to the rabbi. So basically, continue what we said, we're talking about the public Jewish leader. First of all, he has to know that he has to have a time for learning, not only a time physically, but he has to have a public posture. I think that would be a public position. He can't sometimes like this, sometimes like that. He has to have a position of Torah. Secondly, he can't schmooze around the whole day. Sometimes you have Jewish leaders, they love people. But if they overindulge with people, they will not be involved in activities. They have to know they have to be here at the rabbinical court, here at the yeshiva, here in their synagogue, here at the women's gallery, whatever it is. But they have to have the time. In other words, time-wise. But they have to know they're organized. And the most important thing is to always know that publicly. And I again emphasize this thing. I think with Shammai, the key thing is public. You have to be, well, maybe we would say today, PC, publicly correct or diplomatic. You can't say outlandish things for the public. If you are a public official, the representative of Yahadut, you have to have this posture which is prominent. And Shammai, it seems, is very concerned. It reminds me some of the Rabbanim that we used to have in America. Day in, day out, winter, summer, you never saw them non-rabbinical. They were always dressed and stayed, and they knew how to be big people all the time. And then you have people sometimes like this. I'm not saying what's right or wrong, but this is Shammai's approach. You have to be all the time publicly directed.
Thank you so much, and I hope that each of us could fulfill all these teachings of Shammai, and anyone that we encounter, always greet them warmly and cheerfully. Thank you so much.